Hello, Africa. You're welcome to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices Show, and we are here at the AH Hotel, East Legon, Ghana. And what's going on? We're having Women in PR Ghana Summit 2022, and we have all of these sponsors supporting this particular event. We are here as a very proud women's organization and program with ETV, where we'd like to interview various women who are into PR practicing across Ghana and Africa. So right before I introduce you to my very first guest, I'd like you to know that this show is proudly brought to you by very, very inspiring sponsors who are quite responsible. First is Chana Sheto. My hair is also put together by Awu's Hair, my outfit by Afewa Styles. So do stay tuned as I introduce my very first guest. Do not go away.
Hello, my name is Faith Sanam. I'm the founder of Women in PR Ghana. Keep watching African Women Voices.
Hello, Africa. I mentioned earlier I'm going to be talking to my very first guest, and she's here. She'll be introducing herself, and we'll be asking her just 2 questions. And I believe you're going to want to hear these questions I'm going to be asking her. So please take it away.
Hi, and I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me. My name is Isiedua Adai, Head of Corporate Affairs, Brand and Marketing at Standard Chartered Ghana PLC.
All right, so before we got here, she made a speech and she made an address or a presentation, and she talked about people always saying, oh, why don't you think outside the box? Because that's a very normal expression. She came up with a different expression that is not quite familiar with us, and I'd like her to talk about it. And this expression has to do with, why do we not throw the box away? So what did you mean by that?
Thank you. So, for us, like you rightly said, every time we are PR practitioners and we are marketers and we are expected to operate in a digital age. Now, every time we come up with a problem or something that we need to do, people will be like, oh, think outside the box, just try and, you know, be creative about it. But for us in this digital age, yes, creativity is key. Authenticity, like I said, is also key. But why restrict ourselves to a box if there's ever a box? So, what I was saying in there was throw away the box. The digital space is huge. It is evolving at such a rapid speed. And so, it is important that we keep pace with what is going on. Otherwise, we'll be extinct. And so, in keeping pace, obviously, you don't have to restrict yourself. So, just go out there. Imagine there's nothing, there are no limits. Nothing is impossible. But 2 things: be authentic and stay true to your messaging.
Great. So the very last question has to do with how to tell the digital story. And she gave us some 3 C's. And I also like a very good example you gave to us. You mentioned the Our Day Boy, who we all remember to date. And if you should ask us exactly what was, trending at that time, nobody remembers. But we all remember the Our Day Boy and how everybody was trying to leverage on his creativity. And also you mentioned the couple that, expressed their love at KFC, which was quite interesting. So if you just take us through the 3 C's you mentioned about how to tell our digital story.
Yeah, so the 3 C's, like I said, is content. We have content, you have cool channels, so they are channels, and then there's consumer data analytics. So, content, remember, as PR practitioners, we have the content. Content is king, as they say it. However, the difference in today's world is being creative in telling our story. We need to understand who we are talking to, where they are, what they are doing, how they will assimilate the message. And knowing all of these things will help us be creative. So, gone are the days where you will just issue a press release for a program. This time, instead of issuing a press release, you need to actually slice the information you have. Look at your audience. Your audience don't need to consume all of the information. Your audience needs a certain bit of the information. So depending on your audience, you get the right information for them. And I was telling them in there that I work for a financial institution. And so there are numbers. Numbers always confuse people. How then do we make sure that we are sharing the numbers in a creative way for people to get the messaging? Because remember, it's also very fast paced, right? So people don't have time, they are scrolling. But once they see something that's creative, it connects, rings a bell, they would ask for more. And so that's content. Channels, like we said, there are plethora of them. from LinkedIn to TikTok. Now everyone is on TikTok, to Snap, to Instagram, Twitter. Each of them has a different persona. So if you take yourself, I'm sure you're on LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, you are this
Oh yeah, the very corporate kind of person.
telling you. On Instagram, you probably share your clothes, your outfit. Hey girl, On Twitter, you were listening in there, you are tweeting some of the key messages which you are playing back to me right now. Now, how do I meet you with my messaging on these different platforms in a way that will make sense to you and in a way in which you'll be willing to assimilate it? So on Instagram, there's a different way. What we're saying is don't just slap the same story across all channels. It will make no impact. So make sure you tailor your story to different channels based on the audience that are existent on those channels. And then the last one is consumer data analytics. Yes, we are PR professionals, but we need data. In today's world, if you are unable to analyze data, there's no way you can move forward. If people are spending 7 hours a day on their phones, what are they doing on their phone? Where are they looking? What are they visiting? How can you use that information to your advantage? And that's data, 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 data. So be friends with people who have knowledge of data, or take time to upskill yourself to understand how to interpret basic data analysis, and that would go a long way to help you. So there you are, the three C's.
Fantastic. So we look forward to having you maybe for a full hour on the African Women's Voices show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are here at the AH Hotel at East Legon, where Women in PR Ghana Summit 2022 is ongoing. We had a panel discussion where we talked about how CEOs need to be visible and the value it actually carries. One thing that stood out for me was how we need to orient our CEOs. And we have someone next to me who really spoke about it. She is known to be with MTN. She's going to introduce herself and then we continue with the conversation. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So please tell us your name and what you do at MTN.
My name is Georgina Sarifiapino. I'm MTN Senior Manager for Corporate Communications. So basically, responsible for managing MTN's reputation, and within that space, I manage internal and external communications. One of the most important aspects of my work is also managing CEO communications or leadership communications.
Right, which means that we are actually speaking to the right person. We have a lot of women in the space of owning their own business. And a lot of times when we talk about CEO visibility or certain things, they feel that it's just for the corporate people. Oh, this doesn't belong to me at all. I can't identify with this kind of place. But today, since she's been handling CEOs and their communication and their reputation management, we'd like her to throw some highlights on how we need to do some kind of orientation for our CEOs. So how well or what is the value it comes with when it comes to orienting the CEO?
Well, it's really important for every communications person to orient the CEOs. In the first place, I always talk about planning. Planning is very important. And before you put together a plan, it means you have to think through who you are developing the plan for. So you have the CEO. It can be for a multinational. It can be doing a CEO plan for maybe an NGO, a faith-based organization. I believe that every organization, no matter how small or large it is, needs a communications plan. And this means that the CEO also needs a communications plan. But you have to have a conversation with the CEO for him to appreciate why it's really important. So, for example, the CEO needs to know the media orientation. He may or may not know. And since this is a women's forum, let me use female CEOs. A lot of women entrepreneurs in Ghana believe that they can do their business in their small space without being visible. But I would say that being visible, especially using the right channels, using the right messages, will help you, build a better brand, build a better reputation. Think about it this way. If you have a business, you have an organization, even if you have one item you are selling, and it's not visible, how do people get to know? And you should also remember that sometimes people give you business because of who you are. You know, you may be a friend of someone, a family of another person, you may have attended school with someone, someone is your church member, and the more they see you, the more they connect with you. So that connection sort of attracts them to the brand. It gives you an opportunity to explain the products and services you are offering. And this is the reason why we need our women to be visible. Because once you are visible, people see you, they can ask you questions, you go out, and it can be small exhibitions. You can start small. It doesn't have to mean that you have to be on a big TV platform. But I would say take every opportunity you have to make yourself visible. But remember, you should have a plan. Don't just go out without a plan of what to say, how to engage. Just think through, but just take the small steps and you get there.
Awesome. I think you nailed it. And I really look forward to a time when we get to have you in the studio to talk on CEO visibility.
That would be great. Thank you.
We just discussed CEO visibility, and we found out that several things need to be put into consideration. Seated right next to me is a woman who is very passionate about how we women present ourselves as CEOs, as executives, as leaders, or whatever we choose to be. She is interested in packaging us very well and then put us out there to be much more presentable to the world. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, as I make welcome. Tell us your name.
Hi, my name is Blessed Ajiman. Yes, and then like you said, I am founder of Herada. Herada is a boutique management firm that basically our expertise is in image consulting, soft skills and etiquette, and then international diplomacy and protocol. Now, why I'm here today is basically about, like you said, the executive visibility. That is what we've been talking about. We've come to a certain realization that the women at the top, most often, not limited just to them, but they need to, most importantly, take time to look their parts. They need to look like who they are. And since it's not quite easy to do, that is why we image consultants are available. So one of the core products of Harada is image consulting, where we match the personalities and then the lifestyles of the clients to how they present themselves, both within and over there in the public, basically. So we do this through different platforms. We do this through your executive presence strategy. We do this through the actual wardrobe styling, personality styling. We do this through wardrobe analysis, body analysis. We don't just, not unlike the stylist, we just don't put clothes on you. We look at your personality, look at what you're doing, your end goal, and then we put everything together more like a strategy agency. We do all that just to back the executive presence you have to put out to the public. So that's just one. Image consulting and visibility is just one that we do for women, basically.
Okay, so bringing it home to everyone who is watching us, you may still be trying to juggle what it is she's saying. The thing is, a lot of times, when we reach out to some of you who are watching me right now for a picture, maybe for an artwork to be on this show, we find people digging through their phones to find pictures of selfies or pictures of them at an event, and then they present that as an artwork that we're going to be using to push maybe the interview. Her role is to help you take the right pictures for different occasions. So it's very important. Women are not leveraging on this. If you find male CEOs, our counterparts, they are always trying their best to present themselves in the best of ways. For women, sometimes we feel it's all about fashion. So we just want to dress nice and come, but you've dressed nice. Where does it really fit? Does it fit for your Twitter, your Instagram, your LinkedIn? Where does it work? With the image consultant, she's going to be able to let you know that, okay, we've packaged you this way, so this will be good for this particular platform or for this particular kind of engagement. So it's really, really wonderful to know that we have people in this space, women who understand the needs of women, doing this. So today, before leave of us, I would like you to kind of show us some kind of poses that, because sometimes I see people, they do something like, or they do something like this, or they do something like this, like, Are they all part of it?
So I think basically what has happened over the years is that people have seen other people, it's called, the techniques is called executive power poses. So basically it's body language techniques. So these body language techniques can be verbal, non-verbal, right? So that's the non-verbal way of asserting your power or your leadership. And over the years, we've seen a lot of more people do that. So people tend to automatically fall to that. But you realize that sometimes the person doing that, it looks like they are actually mimicking. There are people that own the power postures because that's how they naturally come across, and there are people that look like they're trying so hard. So everybody, in fact, even how your face shape is determine what power pose you should take. But these are not things that here in Africa we take into consideration. We see people do it out there professionally, and trust me, almost everybody out there has an image consultant on the team, has a stylist on the team that's telling them how to effortlessly do these things. But we see them out there and we just copy them, thinking it's for everybody. No. So this is why we are here. Harada is here to make things easier for women. We will do your analysis for you, see what power pose, fits you, fits even your background, where you're coming from, what company you're representing, and then we can. So you can't lead a fairly fun organization and you have a body language or a power pose that is too serious or too to the extreme of doom. We have to balance it. So there's a way to go about it. There are techniques to it. That's why we are here to help out. Yes.
Amazing. Now, talking about press kits. So we've been able to address the poses. Well, this could be one of mine. I don't know.
You're in the media. It definitely works. You should be inviting.
Okay. Right. I'm so happy I was able to get that pose. Talking about the press kits, we are looking at the kind of packaging in terms of the stories and how we talk about who we are. They also do things like that. And I'd like us to throw more light on the press kit because I'm very sure that quite a number of women do not have this press kit, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs. When we go to the corporate world, maybe their PR department will set it up for them. But we've got a lot of women who are entrepreneurs who are doing their own kind of businesses and they don't have this. And this is really important for you. Whether you have your own business or whether it's a corporate one that is within an office space and all of that, you need it. So how can people, what are they supposed to know before they put together a press kit for them? So that they begin to think through it before, they call you. So they don't come and then are loading you with so much work and everything. So these are some of the things you need to know first before a press kit is put together for you.
So first and foremost, as an individual who decides to put yourself and your business out there, I always say that is why there's personal branding. Personal brand management is something we do also. Everybody has a story, everybody has a uniqueness that puts their business on a higher scale than the next. You might all be selling the same tomatoes, but there's a different way someone does it. And for the most part, everybody has a reason or a story behind what they are doing. So press kits basically is what will let the public, because the press speaks to the public. So it's that, for a lack of a better word, is that document that tells most people in the public what you are about. Now, what we see people do is they just put things together, and then some people don't even have it. Right? So we have to look at your story. We have to look at what makes you unique. We tie it to the product or the service you have for the public, and we put it in a way that will get people to come to you. So that is basically a press kit. But the reason why it's a kit is because now we have a picture, appropriate picture, we have an appropriate messaging, we put all this together into something that you can willingly at a go give out without having to fumble for hours when the opportunity comes for you to present yourself to the press or to the public. So that is why we call it a kit, and we are available to put that to you regardless of your industry or whether you're private or public sector.
Great. I really enjoy this interview and I look forward to having you for a full 1 hour to discuss this further. Thank you so much.
So much for having me.
And you're welcome back to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices show. This is a show that tackles issues pertaining to women as they contribute to national development. And this voice keeps amplifying a lot of voices. And we always look forward to meeting women from across Africa. Right next to me is a lady from Nigeria, and she is going to introduce herself and tell us how we get to use social currency to build a global network. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. My name is Iretomi Wakite Johnson. I'm a lead PR and comms advisor at ID Africa. We are a Pan-African communications advisory and executory company. Um, so we just announced our West Africa and East Africa expansion as well. So it's been interesting at times. So yesterday I spoke about using social currency to build your global network with two amazing women yesterday, and it was really, really interesting. We spoke about how you can use your presence, your brand values, your identity to expand your network across the world. Because right now we're not just Nigerian or Sierra Leonean or Ghanaian practitioners. We're global. Everything that you do now the it has the potential to be global. So it's important that we are aware of that, and it's important that we craft strategies for ourselves. So even beyond, beyond what we curate for brands, for companies, for CEOs, it's important that we also take our time. Take our time to assess ourselves, our own brands as individuals, and identify your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities that you have, the threats that may arise, and take a step back and use all of that to craft a strategy that works for you, so that everything that you put out in respect of yourself, any form of content you put out, whether it's on social media or you're writing about very potent issues that have very global impact, or you're writing for the New York Times, you're writing for a major Ghanaian newspaper as well. It's important that all of that, every single thing, goes towards building your global network. Because right now, Africa matters more than ever. We've always mattered, obviously, but now it's not a case of our music, our entertainment, communications industry. The world is listening to us. They should have done it a long time ago. But this is as best as any time as possible for us to make our voices matter. And it's important that we're using the right messages, the right voice, the right tone as well. So as professionals, as female professionals, for instance, we understand that society over the years, centuries, we are taught to act a certain way, be a certain way, stand a certain way, which is really good. But we need to be more vocal about what we do. If you see, about 30% of women leaders across the world, just 30%. It's too small. And then the gender pay gap, because we need to be, so it shows that there's a problem. We need to be more vocal about how we talk about what we do, how we talk about the things we intend to do, our projects, our practices, because nobody's going to notice you if you don't talk. So it's important that we are vocal. It is very, very important. And now is the time for the woman. It's really, really the time for the woman.
Awesome. So, how has your stay been here in Ghana?
It's been beautiful. Thank you very
First
much.
time?
Yes, it's my first time here in Ghana.
Have you had to take any Ghanaian food or gone to?
Okay, so not yet. I've just come straight for the summit. I heard that from tomorrow I'm going to go around seeing the monuments. I'm going to eat a lot more Ghanaian food. I'm going to try out Ghanaian jollof rice. That's what I'm really, really excited about.
Competition is on.
And I'm going to, if something happens and I find out that it's better, I'm just going to just not say anything. But let's see what happens.
So good to catch up with you, and I look forward to having this very exciting time with you, maybe in Nigeria the next time I come, or wherever we get to meet. But we have to do this again.
Thank you. Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
We are gradually delving into human interest activities, and seated right next to me is Ohenewa from Action Aid. We're going to find out from her exactly how they're using PR to tell their story. You're welcome.
Hi, Eunice. Thank you. Nice. Thanks for having me.
Great. So we learned today through the panel discussion about how we could use digital strategies to be able to tell the stories of our brands or of our initiatives, and how the world is moving really fast, and how people sometimes want to just put stuff out there without even checking it. How are you using PR to tell the Action Aid story?
Great, thank you. So, for ActionAid, as you're aware, we are a non-governmental organization. We basically work within the communities, um, putting in place programs and projects that are centered on our mission priorities. Now, these mission priorities, you look at addressing violence against women, you look at agroecology, you look at, climate justice issues from a gender perspective because we are a women-led organization. Now, you realize that you cannot successfully tell the story if you do not have a strategic plan when it comes to communication. And so we have what a 5-year strategic plan, and mostly this communication plan is centered on our country strategy paper. So based on the direction of the country strategy paper, we developed the communication plan to be in tune of that country strategy paper. Now, what we also do is to go to the communities. You would agree with me that if you are implementing programs and projects, there is no way you can successfully tell people about the story if you do not use the right channels of communication. And then again, for us as an NGO, we do not have much money when it comes to commercial media platforms or communication platforms. And so one of the key strategies we use is our own media platforms, which is social media. And if you look at all our platforms, we use these platforms to communicate or augment the stories of the people we are impacting their lives. And so we go to the community, we get to interview the people that are successfully benefiting from the programs or the project that we are implementing within the communities, and they are able to tell their story. We use our social media platforms, we use our YouTube channels, we use our Twitter platforms, basically to augment these messaging and help people to understand what it is that we are doing. You cannot do without communication. And for us, for what we do, it is about telling story. PR is all about, or communication is about storytelling. And I think for the past 2 years, we have been hammering on storytelling. And for us at ActionAid, that is what we've been doing over the period, basically to tell the story of the people that we are working with within the communities and how well these people are also benefiting from the programs and the projects that we implement within the communities.
Awesome. So how is that going? Have you been able to say that we are fully capturing the audience, or would you say that some part of your communication had, been met with some kind of challenges where people misinterpreted what you put out there?
Yeah, I think you're right. So one of the key things we work on within the communities, especially when it comes to education, which falls under our mission priority 3, that is child-friendly education, and also to ensure that access to education to especially girls is not abused. So one of the things we work on is re-entry. The Ghana Education Service have what we call the re-entry policy. And so we work with young women who get pregnant at a very young age to go back to school. Now, one of the things we have observed is that when it comes to the people, stigmatization is a key issue. And so you are educating the community to accept people to go back to school. But some of the community members also feel that this is encouraging the women to get pregnant. And so because of that, they know they have a chance to go back to school, so they get pregnant and all that. That, for me, is a challenge. It might not necessarily be a challenge from a communication perspective, but a challenge when it comes to attitude of people within the communities. Because some of the people feel that, and the question you keep asking is, why should somebody be stopped? It's not only a woman who gets pregnant, it's a process. It's between a man and a woman. And so why should it be an attitude towards a young woman who's no fault of hers, get engaged in a sexual activity and end up getting pregnant? But it's one of the things we have identified in terms of our advocacy for re-entry of young girls. We are working very hard with all the teams across the regions to address that particular challenge. And the the best way to do this is to use traditional opinion leaders within the communities who are more like the gatekeepers of the community, basically to be able to reach out to the people and let them to understand that these are our future leaders. We need to give them that opportunity. Getting pregnant should not end your educational ambition. You should be able to go back to school. So those are one of the challenges we've observed. Another thing we have also observed is a commercialization of the traditional media landscape. You would agree with me that a brand like ActionAid cannot, when it comes to payments of airtime, be competing with profit organizations. And so a lot of the time you realize that media houses, instead of paying attention to human interest stories, would rather put commercial stories ahead of human interest stories. So it becomes very, very difficult for you to penetrate. You would only have to, for me, as somebody who have practiced journalism for a while, I'm able to understand the editorial policy of of the media house. And then based on that, I would pitch my activity or my project to be in tune with the editorial policy of the organization. I mean, you have hosted ActionAid a couple of times because you are a voice for women. And so as a women-led organization, it makes a lot of sense for us to work with you, basically to augment our messaging as an organization. So basically that's how we've been working. It's difficult, it's tough, because the media houses also need to pay their stuff. But then again, I think that we need to be looking at how best, because for us as a country, we've signed onto the Sustainable Development Goals, and by 2030, we should be making progress in achieving all the Sustainable Development Goals. And you ask yourself, how best are we projecting the gains that we've made when it comes to education, when it comes to violence against women, when it comes to eradication of poverty? These are the things that we need. And of course, when it comes to climate change, because that is planet, and that is very key when it comes to issues of sustainable development goals. So I think that as a practitioner or as somebody who handles communication for my organization, we are effectively using the channels of communication to augment our messaging. But there's a lot more. I mean, there are a lot of platforms that are coming up that all of us as practitioners needs to be looking at how best, whether or not we can use these platforms to also sell the messages of our organization.
Great. So we look forward to having you once again on African Women's Voices Show. Right now, I have next to me Odilia Ntiamwa. She was part of the panelists who discussed extensively about the value of having our CEOs or executives visible. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Awesome. So if you just give us a little recap for those of us who were not able to hear what the discussion was.
So we just took a look at the importance of pushing your CEO brand out there, and the fact that the CEO brand has to be built based on the company's values. But if the CEO is announced, who are his immediate audiences or the people he needs to target? He needs to take a look at one, his internal audiences, the people who work with the company, and then of course he needs to also reach out to the target market of the business. The CEO cannot be aloof. He cannot say that, oh, I don't like to be visible, because he's supposed to be the core spokesperson for the brand, and so he needs to position himself first to be able to speak for the brand. And then once he's able to do that, remember that the CEO carries a certain constituency. He may have started off as an ordinary executive person or ordinary team member and risen through the ranks. He has a certain audiences that he's also built for his personal brand. But the brand has to be sure that they do not develop the CEO brand to become stronger than the corporate brand, so that in the long run, when the CEO leaves, he does not leave with the full market of the business. And so the values, the company's strategy, and their targets for the year by year activity they have chosen as a business has to be built in such a way that whatever the CEO's personal interests are woven into the bigger picture of the bigger business, so that we are leveraging on the man or woman's brand, and in order to build a certain capital for the business.
and not necessarily that when this person leaves, then the person has left with the full business. No. So these were some of the things we spoke about.
Right, so talking about social media, we had a lot of people feeling that when the CEO needs to be visible, we need to do that via social media. However, we find ourselves today having CEOs who are not very comfortable with social media. What do we get to do with CEOs like this? How do we get them visible as well?
I think some of the main things that the brand has to do is one, if that CEO is bogged down with so much work that they cannot on a day-to-day basis keep up with social media, especially on Twitter, what they can do is within the team, the corporate communications department can decide to do that using the CEO's handle in conjunction with the CEO so that they aren't using a certain tone of language which people who know him will be able to tell that this is not him exactly. So it has to be done in conjunction with this CEO. It will surprise you that as time goes on, because you're doing it together with him, it will rub on him or her, and they would immediately begin to do some of the communication themselves. Yes.
Fantastic. I would really love to have Odelia, talk to us about visibility of executives or the CEO for a much longer time. But this is how much we can get of her right now because she needs to get back into the sessions. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Seated right next to me is Ann Saki, and she was quite phenomenal during the panel discussion. Welcome, Ann Saki.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, what I'd like us to talk about is the fact that you mentioned that when we have some CEOs who really don't feel comfortable with what the PR practitioners are presenting to them, we should be able to follow this particular strategy. And one that stood out for me was the communications policy. Please highlight more on the policy.
Well, every organization really needs to have different policies. I mean, you have your HR policy, employment policy, you even have leave policies. And communication is such a key area because you need to be very careful that you're all on the same pages about what's being put out there about the company, whether it's new developments, whether it's pricing, whether, whatever it might be. And so it's very important that you have a communication policy, which basically outlines, for this purpose, which of your executives, which members of staff will be talking to various issues. Because obviously there might be very high level issues that other members of staff might not have, the relevant information for. You also don't want too many people saying too many different things at the same time. So ideally, I mean, even for social media, you would have maybe one or two specific people who can answer questions on social media. If it's high level investment information about the direction of the company, then you would have your CEO speak to that. And then, there'll be other information for the various executives, whether they're in finance or sales, etc. And I think another point came up. The policy must also reference an issues document, which is updated, a live document which is updated virtually maybe every day. Because whenever an issue comes up, you should be able to determine what's the answer going to be. But we're not talking about fake answers just to put people off, but truthful answers, but that are given the right information for people. So how are you addressing price increases? How are you explaining why there are price increases? So you break it down for your customers so they understand the transparency of it. I mean, in the case of, let's say, multi-choice, what's rain fade? So that when somebody comes and complains about rain fade, you're able to accurately, with the right, technology, answer why there's rain fade so that the customer doesn't say, oh, okay, well, if you can't tell me, I'm disconnecting and I'm going away. So the the communication policy, your issues document, very important. And then sometimes you might have individual projects where you need to have Q&As for that particular project, even if it's a campaign, even because people will call in and say, oh, I saw your ad, or I saw your CEO talking about XYZ. What is, whatever. And then maybe they've called into your call center and then they're like, Oh, well, I haven't seen the ad, so I don't know what you're talking about. So those are the three key documents I think are really important, just to kind of complement your executive visibility.
Great. It was fantastic having you, and we look forward to having you in the studio where we get to talk much more about communications.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Deborah Bonny. I am a woman in PR. Keep watching African Women's Voices show.
And you're welcome back to ETV Ghana's African Women's Voices show. Seated right next to me is Wamaka Onyemelokwe, all the way from Nigeria, Coca-Cola. She's going to introduce herself better. However, she spoke to us at the summit about how women in PR are contributing to SDGs. And I'd like her to amplify on that right on African Women's Voices show. Wamaka, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Amaka Onyemelokwe, the Director for Public Affairs, Communications and Sustainability for Coca-Cola Nigeria.
Great. You know, when you say Coca-Cola, I mean, everybody just has fun memories of what Coca-Cola brings to us. And I'm really smiling already. That goes to say that a lot of PR has gone into the brand and it keeps making you smile and relive all the good memories and feelings. So let's talk about what the conversation you led is all about here. You mentioned that women in PR are contributing to SDGs. How so?
So, women in PR are great opinion shapers. So if you recognize that from economies of countries to organizations, reputations, to actually putting the narrative out there are led by women in PR. That's actually a great platform that they have versus other women. And that is one thing that we have to be self-aware so that we can use it to advocate for SDGs. So yes, today we are pushing for gender equality, inclusivity, diversity for women, and the whole issues of social justice that actually affect the girl child or the women. And this is actually a place that the women in PR can contribute significantly because they have platforms, despite recognizing the issues. They have platforms, they have networks that they could use to push the narratives. So whenever you want to change or lead a transformation, what comes to your mind is to run a PR campaign. And for women in PR, we believe that they have a great platform to be able to begin to advocate and push the agenda of SDGs so that we can actually create a more equitable world. So one of the key attributes that the SDG seeks to address is actually issues from hunger to zero poverty to inequality gap in the society. And women generally being half of the world population, but are greatly disadvantaged. When you talk about they do the most of 66% of the world work, they earn 10% of the world income, but 90% of the income they earn is actually put back to the family or the society. So we believe that they are great pillars, and there's a lot of intersection between the values of PR and that of the SDG, from inclusivity to social justice to things around gender gap to inequality. That intersection is great for the women in PR. And the earlier we start becoming self-aware of the platforms, the networks that we have to be able to shape opinions and advocate more for SDG. And of course, the goal is simple. We want no one to be left behind. So we believe that they have what it takes to help start shaping that narrative so that we can create a better world for the society. And for me, coming from the brand side, Coca-Cola is one of the world's most loved beverages. I work in the PR, it's a PR professional advocating that brands. People are demanding for brands with purpose. And by the time you start associating the company's objective with the brand that you represent, you're going to create loved brands, you're going to increase your reputation, people are going to identify you beyond the brand and what you represent. That way, you are not only championing the cause of the society, you're also increasing your business. So, and because if we have a better world, we'll have a better sustainable community, people will have better purchasing power, and you indirectly increase your business. So everything is linked, And the earlier the women in PR recognizes the fact that they have a great platform to push their society, their community, their organization towards the intersection with SDGs, then they can begin to realize that we all have a better platform to create a better world for everyone.
Wow, with what you just said about creating a better world for everyone, it just reminded me of this Coca-Cola advert I heard as a child growing up in Enugu State. And interestingly, I can still remember every line of that song. I love that one. Let me try it. I am the future of the world. I am the hope of my nation. I am tomorrow's people. I am a new inspiration. Then it goes and goes. And then the ending is to build a better world for you. Thank you so, so much for being part of the conversation on Women in PR.
Thank you so much. And really, what stands out for me, even in the campaigns that we create, is actually the intersection with humanity. So everybody loves about our Hilltop campaign that talks, I love to build.
Oh my
So at the
goodness.
end of the day, you see that when it connects to its society, when it connects to people, that's actually what breaks or makes the impact. And really, that's what we have to advocate as PR professionals. So I'm happy and glad to be here.
Right, thank you so much. Can end the by. Can I have a hand on our watch?
And if I can mono, all the way from Niger, Ibia, ka enwekọrịta aṅụrị wee kwukọrịta okwu ka a ga-esi wee make sure n'ụwa anyị bụ ebe dị mma. So ọ mụ na nwaada
Eunice Tonye, nwa Enugu, eto m n'Enugu State, even though I'm onye Ghana, ana m asụ the Igbo very, very well. So bikono, gbakọtanụ ọnụ, ka anyị na-eme ka ụwa na-atọ ụtọ.
ndewo.
Wow, fantastic. And it has been amazing. The education has been wonderful. Networking. We've had fun and we've also gained quite a good knowledge around public relations and how we practice it. I want to believe that you've been logging onto the hashtag WIPR Summit 2022, which is always organized by Women in PR Ghana. And we want to say a very big thank you to you for being part of the whole conversation. Faith, the founder of Women in PR Ghana, is here, and she's got these final words to say to you.
Thank you all for joining us for our 6th edition of Women in PR Ghana Summit. It's been exciting, it's been a lot of networking, a lot of learning for all of us, and an opportunity for all of us to grow and impact on each other. And so hopefully next year we'll see you again. And thank you Africa Women Voices for being a part of Women in PR Ghana Summit 2022.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm also happy to have been part of it, and you definitely will see us next year. All right, thank you. It's bye from here.